This is the Menopause Movement Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Gordon. Now, here at the Menopause Movement, we've surveyed over 50,000 menopausal women. And through this, we've discovered that the number one cause of menopausal suffering for our clients is weight gain. Now, you've said things like, how do I lose the menobelly? I don't recognize myself anymore. How can I get me back? When menopause hit me out of the blue, I had no idea what was happening. And when I gained about 50 pounds overnight, I hated what I saw in the mirror. The menopause movement exists to provide world-class transformational education to women who are suffering from the symptoms and effects of menopause. And we're here to give you the education you need to get your life back. We want menopause to be the best time of your life. I mean, it is for me, and I want that for you. After years of trial and error, I finally cracked the code with my menopause weight. And now I want to share with you how I did it. I realized that what helped me the most was a challenge. So we've created a challenge for you to help you lose your menobelly. Simply go to menopausemovement.com/challenge to sign up. I'll see you there. What's up, Menopod? Excited to be here with you for another amazing episode of the Menopause Movement Podcast. Spring has sprung here in New York, and now that I'm finding that if I want to get my runs in, I got to get up and get outside earlier. I'm currently preparing for a 5K, and that's 3.1 miles. Those of you who think that's a sprint, I think you're awesome. Otherwise, it's not really that short of a run, that long either, but it's fun to do these trainings and to do races. I started running again about 5 years ago. And when I did, I could only run for about 30 seconds at a time. I'd run and then walk and then run and then walk. My heart rate was super high and my feet really hurt. Fast forward to 2018. And on September 30th that year, I did a 5K. And toward the end of the race, my hip started hurting. And that led to almost 2 years without running at all because of a condition called bursitis. And the only thing that helped it was rest. And sometimes resting is hard. And when we go back to work, we want to compare ourselves to who we used to be. I realized that the only way I was going to improve my running was to stop worrying about my past fitness and focus on beating yesterday. And this helped me so much. And now I'm preparing for my first event since 2018. And today in the podcast, we're welcoming my friend Fabienne Fredrickson. Fabienne and I met in 2014 through a business group. We've stayed in touch over the years. She's a great resource for anyone who wants to grow their business and become a money magnet. Also, she's an amazing cook. Make sure you check out her Instagram for nearly daily videos on what she's cooking up in her kitchen. Fabienne is a powerful catalyst for solo business owners who seek to make the greatest impact they can in their work while creating certainty in their business and financial security in their lives. She believes that when women make their own money, and lots of it, they experience a profound feeling of safety in their life, allowing them to take up more space for their families, communities, and the world. With over 20 years of experience as the founder of boldheart.com, Fabienne has been a mentor to tens of thousands of women business owners. Her company has repeatedly been recognized by the media, and Inc. magazine has named it one of America's fastest growing private companies for 3 consecutive years. Fabienne is an inspiring speaker, sometimes even speaking to audiences as large as 7,000, and has been featured in Forbes, Entrepreneur, Inc., Fast Company, Amex Forum, and the New York Times. Fabienne has the rare and unique ability to powerfully teach transformational concepts in an engaging and moving way, while inspiring her audiences to become better versions of themselves. Her TEDx talk is one example of making a concept that is usually difficult to grasp seem absolutely attainable. As one would with fairy dust, Fabienne sprinkles self-worth and mindset principles onto all of her teaching. She teaches you to fight self-doubt, become infinitely more confident, and then get out of your own way so you can create a magnificent life you love. During the podcast, we talk about Fabienne's move with her family of 5 to Paris from the USA in 2016, Fabienne's entrepreneurial journey, alignment, connection to purpose, and what that means, food and well-being, and why food is different in France, tapping into feminine energy and the divine feminine, future-proofing your business, listening to your intuition, connecting to the divine, what is suffering and how to manage it, pronoia, what that means and how you can start to believe it, what happens when we pursue personal growth, how to become a money magnet, fear, what it means and how to move past it, and stay to the end to find out how to get you out of your own way in anything. At the end of the episode, visit menopausemovement.com/podcast, where you can find the show notes, plus the links to the books and resources mentioned in the episode. And if you enjoyed this episode, leave a written review, like and subscribe on YouTube, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts, so you're always the first to know when each episode is released. And what's your biggest menopause struggle? Let me know on Instagram at Dr. Michelle Gordon, or on Facebook, also at Dr. Michelle Gordon. I really want to hear from you. And thanks again for being a part of the menopause movement. Now let's get to Fabienne. Fabienne.
Yes.
Welcome to the Menopause Movement Podcast. I'm so excited to have you. We've been friends since 2014 or something.
Yeah, we've been through stuff together.
Yeah, for sure. And, you're the first person I know personally who chose to become an expat. And you live in Paris. You moved to Paris, just in 2016, right?
Yep.
The beginning.
2016, indeed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember feeling so jealous that you were going there. And I mean, you grew up in Paris, and so it wasn't so hard for you. But how's it been? You've got 3 kids, and so how's it been for your kids who were speaking English and primarily and living in Connecticut, and now you've been in, you planned on staying in Paris for a year, and now here it is 5 years later.
5 years, yeah.
Yeah. So let's just talk about that for a second, because gosh, what a big change.
Yeah, big change. So when my husband and I talk about this, we talk about high highs and low lows, how it's absolutely exhilarating. It's a dream come true. One of the things I love about Paris and France is that it is a feminine country. And I lived in New York and the US, and where, but I want to say some stuff, but maybe we'll save that for later.
Okay.
But, I realize that the feminine is revered here, where I think in other places in the world, it is tolerated at best. And so it has been an opening of my soul. And I think one of the major reasons why my soul was brought back here. Mm-hmm. But in terms of my family, high highs and low lows. And what I have really appreciated about my children, because you asked, is we thought the international school they were going to was bilingual, and they make it seem that way, but it wasn't that way at all. And I remember a month and a half into school, they said, why are you doing this to us? I want to go home. And I said, Fredricksons don't quit. Because if I allow us to go home now that you're experiencing this challenge, I will set you up for the rest of your life that the minute you feel a speed bump, you're going to give up. And my job in life is to have you persevere. And so we're going to dig deep. And I brought out all my coaching tools. Like, seriously, I've been a coach for 20 years. I'm like, okay, we're going to bring this one out and this one out. And you know what? It was they in January, February who said, can we stay another year?
Oh, that's amazing. I mean, that's so great. And it's so funny because I remember my son, as you may know, is disabled. He's high functioning disabled. And I remember a couple of years ago, we had all taken a trip to Provincetown, which is on the East Coast here in Massachusetts. It's a really fun town that's right on the beach there. And we were waiting outside of a restaurant, and I said, I don't know what it was. I said something to him, and I said, Alexander, I said, I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry that I didn't have the communication tools that I have now when you were growing up. Because, I was always very reactionary and very prickly and wanted things my way all the time. And that's one thing about entering into a coaching world, is that you get all these tools for communication. And it's been really helpful for me in my personal relationships, and especially in my relationship with my son, who never will do anything you tell him to do. He's got to be his idea. Always. So that's really great. So you've moved to Paris, and you've been an entrepreneur for a long time. Mm-hmm. And we have a series here on the Menopause Movement podcast where we'll interview entrepreneurs, because most businesses now, the new startups, are started by women over 50. right? Over 50% of new businesses are women over 50. And so I feel like it's a really important part of women who are going through menopause to understand at least the options in terms of getting help in starting a business or what to consider before starting a business, like I did with Ryan Levesque. And so why don't we talk for a second about your own entrepreneurial journey and how you started a business and what that took, what kind of courage that took for you to, leave a sure thing and start something that wasn't so sure.
It's a really interesting internal struggle between faith and fear. Between knowing and doubting. So what I'll say is my intuition was telling me when I was in corporate selling advertising space on 6th Avenue in New York that I wasn't meant for this. I dreaded it. And I thought there's got to be something more meaningful than this. And at the same time, I was doing courses on evenings and weekends, learning holistic health. And I decided that I was going to take the great leap of faith and open up a private nutrition practice out of my 350 square foot apartment in Manhattan with my crazy $1,400 a month, apartment. And I didn't get clients right away. I mean, I got like benevolent friends who paid my $1,200, program, but like 4 or 5 of them. And I wasn't getting clients fast enough. And it was this whole idea of I've made a terrible mistake. And I had friends project their money stories onto me saying, I cannot support you doing this. And I had to tell them, listen, right now I cannot bathe in your negativity. I love you and I need to take like some time because I need to stay positive. So it's, the 3 a.m. sweats, the credit card companies calling, but then flopping back to, I was made for this. When I did have a client, I was changing their life. And it was beyond nutrition. I'll never forget this Latin restaurant worker who came to me to lose weight. But in the end, the reason I was in his life was to help him come out to his religious family, especially father.
Wow.
This young woman to help her get out of her toxic relationship under the premise of, I'm here to teach you how to eat whole grains, tofu, and, and greens. It was wonderful when it was wonderful, but the whole, it was talk about digging deep to find the courage to stay the course.
Yeah. I mean, when you have a calling, you talk about how you knew that there was something different. There was something more and you hated. I mean, I'm paraphrasing now, but you really didn't get any satisfaction out of selling advertising on 6th Avenue. Right. And I can liken that to, I mean, here I am, I'm a surgeon, right? The highest, that's like the highest doctoring is to be a surgeon. It's like, oh, wow, it's so impressive. And it was soul sucking for me. It was just, there was no joy in it for me. And I even got, I was super successful and I made a lot of money and I grew a big practice to, I had 5 doctors, including myself. And I thought, oh yeah, I've made it. Okay, now what? And it just wasn't, I didn't like it. I didn't like anything about it. I didn't like working inside of the whole, American corporate medicine and all of the ways that they were beating down the small guy. And so I started, for me, it was like, I was like, this is not my calling. What is? And I realized looking back that my calling was always to show people that there's something more and there's probably, more in terms of like, let's connect with the higher power and let's connect with the who we really are and all those things. And so, and through all that, I've had to do that myself. I mean, I was an atheist, I was an agnostic, and then I was a meditator and finding God and all the, so it's been a really interesting journey for me. And coming back to alignment. So the one thing we talk about a lot in spiritual circles and is how do you get into alignment and what does that mean? And I think the easier way to talk about it is like what it feels like to not be in alignment, right? And that's so can you speak to that for a minute?
Yeah. Being in alignment for me is really being in this connected state in the sense where I feel a part of all that is. Where it's interesting. because I did a flip-flop on that today. As you know, my father's in the hospital. He had a stroke on Monday.
Sorry.
Yeah. And, I teach as part of the business work that I do, I teach how to get out of fear and get in faith.
Right.
Because that's a higher vibration and that's when you manifest what you want. And, of course, I found myself in total fear the last few days trying to, figure out how to do things. And I just started, again, using my own coaching tools on me, like, Fabienne, snap out of it. Get out of fear, doubt, and worry and get into positive expectation, get into faith, get into a high vortex of vibrational energy. Scientifically, it is measured. The higher the vibration, the higher you are connected to the mental universe, all that is. That's when you are aligned. So, I was in the metro and I'm just like, everything's going to work out. I'm positively expecting great results. No matter what I see in front of me, the universe is rearranging itself for my best interest right now, again and again and again and again, which is the mantra that I share with our members at Bold Heart. Yeah. And then everything opened up today because I got myself in alignment with spirit, with source, with a capital S, where you understand, I'll speak for myself, where I understand that everything is energy. The quantum field talks about this. Scripture talks about this. If you're, and Fabienne, what is the truth? Alignment is the truth.
Yeah.
Get in connection with source and everything will feel easy. And this afternoon, everything felt easy.
That's so beautiful. That's just so beautiful. I mean, so if you're listening to this or watching this on YouTube and you're feeling like you're struggling in your life, there is a lot of ways to get in touch with source. And one of them is meditation. Another one is prayer. If you're a prayer, another way is just to go out in nature and look far away. So I just, I don't want anyone to feel hopeless. I want you to, this isn't something that only Fabienne can do or only I can do. You can do this too. And it just takes intention. And so that's really important.
It's called a spiritual practice because you need to practice it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I love that. Yeah, you do have to practice it. And it's easy when you start to feel really good. When you do these spiritual practices, it's easy to stop doing them and then start feeling bad again and not understanding why. And so it's so important that the practice becomes just a part of your life, that it's just the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is I say like 5 things I'm thankful for. And then I ask myself some questions because of course the subconscious comes to mind. It has to answer when you ask a question, it has to answer a question. And so a few months ago, I started asking myself, why am I so fit and healthy? How did I get so fit and healthy? And it's like 20 pounds ago. It's I've been able to, I just came back actually like 20 minutes before we got on camera here from a 6.5 mile run. And so it's things that when you give your subconscious a job to do, it's going to answer, especially if you give it a question. So this is the Menopause Movement podcast. So let's ask for a second about your menopause experience. Have you had a menopause experience? Are you there yet?
I'm in the thick of it.
Yeah. How's it going?
It's funny. It's gone in waves. A year ago, I was having hot flashes all the time, not in night sweats. And then it went away for a few months, as did my period.
Yay.
And then it came back and now it's gone again. I am looking at this as just a natural process of life.
Yeah.
I am not looking at, and I'm not judging, everybody's doing their thing. I am not looking at taking any supplements. I'm like billions of women have experienced this before. So I'm just kind of riding that wave, just being grateful that I got to make 3 babies and that I'm a woman. I'm so grateful to be a woman.
I love that. Well, it's interesting because a lot of women find menopause to be a time of disruption, like significant disruption. And it's disruption not only in the physical symptoms, but there's a whole like an existential crisis almost that comes for a lot of women in menopause. And it's about a lot of confidence. There's anxiety and difficulty making decisions and confidence problems. And the one thing I have to say is that, like, I have a cousin who lives in France and she lives in Paris. And she said, menopause is not a big deal here in France. they don't really have a big deal. And you're having a pretty, mellow menopause. It doesn't seem to be too disruptive for you.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things we teach in the Minnow system and here at the Menopause Movement is that what you eat is super important.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know if you follow Fabienne, I mean, listen, if you don't follow her on Instagram, you've got to follow her on Instagram because she's going to show you how to cook a whole bunch of really awesome food. So food is really important to Fabienne. And it's been really fun to watch you. Your Instagram is not about your business. I mean, it is sometimes, but for the most part, it's about come with me to Provence and let's make some amazing food, right? And so I love watching you cook. I do watch most of your videos on Instagram. It's so fun. And I just think it's really important that we talk about the role that food plays in our well-being. And so do you want to speak to that for a second?
Yeah. Well, so France is very connected to nature in some senses where I wouldn't dream of eating asparagus in the winter.
Yeah.
Asparagus is a spring vegetable. Strawberries come out. Now is strawberry season, but it won't be strawberry season in November.
Right.
And so I have chosen to eat that way. I don't eat processed foods. I don't buy boxes of things. I literally go to the market, the outdoor market, every 2 to 3 days, and I buy what's fresh, not from Chile, not from, just from France, and what's available now. And my job is to make the food shine. I'm in awe. When it's asparagus season, I will eat it every day, the white or the green. And then, because I know it's going to be gone in a few weeks. When it's strawberry season, man, I am gorging myself on strawberries. And then when it's no more, it's no more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like right now is rhubarb. Oh man, I am all over that.
Rhubarb's delicious. Rhubarb, especially with raspberries, or strawberry. But here's, the thing is I think it's really important that in France, especially, it's whole real food.
Yeah.
It's non-GMO and it's farmers markets.
Mm-hmm.
The first time we went to Paris, I'm the travel planner. And I always want us to be busy. I want us to not sit and do stuff, but I want to be busy. And so I used this company called Tours by Locals. I don't know if you've heard of them, but I've used them all over the world to just see places because they're local people who understand the culture and they will teach you all about stuff. It's great. So if you like tours, it's a Canadian company, Tours by Locals. It's really awesome. I don't get paid for that. So the first time we went there, I was like, oh, let's do this gastronomy tour thing. And not only did we have eat at a couple of really fun restaurants, we went to a farm out in the countryside and we picked strawberries and we picked vegetables and I took them home and I cooked them the next morning when we had eggs for breakfast at the apartment we were staying at. But it was so beautiful to see how connected everything is and the differences. And I'm wondering if this is something that your kids noticed when they moved from Connecticut to Paris. And that is that food, when it's prepared lovingly and healthfully, is a very different experience than, say, going to a drive-through.
Yeah, I think also when I was living in the US, I lived there for 36 years. I raised my children there until they were around 10. And, I was buying the boxes of Cheerios and buying the goldfish crackers and all the things. And I think that it was very convenient as a mom, but I think that it created a block for my kids to be able to understand and appreciate the subtlety of fresh food. And especially when the food is from here and it's in season, it tastes so much more glorious than, if it's been flown from around the world in the wrong time of the year. But that to be said, yeah, they notice it. Now when I bring, and we taste trained, I have to offer this book. I read a book a few years ago called French Children Eat Everything. And that changed my family.
They do.
That book changed my family because I taste trained my kids. And now where they couldn't even eat an asparagus. I keep bringing up asparagus. It's asparagus day today. Yeah. But they wouldn't eat a cherry tomato. Now, when I bring the stuff to the table, They're like, "Mama, thank you." And they jump at it. So,
That's so good.
yeah, and with love and knowing that we're going to eat for an hour, hour and a half, not shoveling down in between swim practice and soccer this. Like we eat every meal, including lunch, for an hour to 2 hours.
Yeah, that was a real culture shock for me when I took my family to Paris and we went to have dinner, and it was so, for an American, dinner in Paris can be excruciating because it's just really slow. And then I started looking. I started looking around and realizing that everyone there was having a good time. They were having conversations. They weren't on their phones. They're just talking. They were having a good time interacting with each other while they ate the food. It was really great.
And you will not see an iPad or a kid with the phone looking at a movie the way I did that with my kids. Here we train the children to that an hour and a half, 2.5 hour lunch or dinner is a time of connection and loveliness and talking. And I'm so glad it's a meditative state to be in that place. Whereby I think that in the past I used to just give them stuff so they could just not be in the moment, and things have changed for me.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's changed for them. I mean, I'm sure that when they go back to the US, they're going to be like, "Wow, it's really fast here." Yeah, it's very different. Paris is a great city. I mean, it's a lot of fun, and we've had some conversations about, I mean, I love the French Alps and the whole area in there. And there's that chateau that we've talked about that I've been to a couple times, and that whole area there is just, I love the wine country and the fact that you've got these mountains that are straight up. And then, you've got vineyards right there.
I've become so much more feminine since being here because I do believe it is a feminine country. I do believe that the feminine is revered here. And part of feminine energy is this slowing down, sensorial. When I say sensorial, I mean like really enjoying the sounds and the sights and the tastes and this being energy, as opposed to where in some other places it's like do and you are rewarded for being busy. I have a friend in the US who used to say to me as a compliment, she's like, "Oh, you're so busy." And it was almost like I had to say thank you. And here it's the opposite,
Yeah. So let's talk about that for a minute. Let's talk about, so there's this book I read a few years ago. As a matter of fact, Ani DeFranco, who is a folk singer, I went to one of her concerts and she mentioned it. And so I said, well, I'm going to read this book. And it's called The Alphabet versus the Goddess. Have you heard of it?
No, I haven't.
I'm going to recommend that book to you because I think I sent you a text about it. It made me think of you as I was reading it because it is the best book that talks about, like, it's the history of religion, and not just the history of religion, but it's like how the patriarchy really got started. And it has to do with using the other side of your brain and written language, and how all the gods were female before written language. And then when we had written language, we started using the other side of our brain. They started killing off the goddesses. And you can see it in the history. It's a beautifully written book. It was written by, I think, a surgeon, an ENT surgeon or something, if I remember correctly. But a beautifully written book and the best history of religion book I've ever read. And it explains why we have a patriarchy. And that's a good place to start to have a conversation about how to become more egalitarian. I'm not advocating for a matriarchy. That's not what I want. I would like to just see us have more equality and have women not be looked over as much. And I think that any woman who grew up, especially in America, is so used to just being ignored. I mean, my family, when I was a kid, I would say something, I would have to say something 5 times before anybody would listen to me. And even to this day, my brother does it unconsciously. I'll say something to him and he'll ignore me. I'll have to say it 3 times to him. And it's just subconscious. It's not his fault. It's just subconscious that the feminine was not revered. And so let's talk a little bit about these. You've got on your outline here, which we're finally getting to, female leadership in unwritten times, how feminine strength is needed now more than ever.
Here's my take on this. If you look at everything that's not working in the world right now, with the planet, with economies, with really pick any topic. My belief is that there is an overabundance of masculine energy. There is, and I love the masculine. I am raising 2 gentlemen. I'm married to the most wonderful man. And the energy of the masculine is transaction, outcome, result, etc. And it's that doing energy. And the feminine energy is one that I see being love and collaboration and compassion and being and contribution. And my view on this is, I had this divine download a couple of years ago, and it was the image of the masculine sitting on its throne. And next to it was another throne, but it was empty.
Mm.
And that for the last 5,000 years or more, the masculine has been rewarded. And I do believe that the masculine, it's wishing that it had its strong counterpart because it's lonely up there. And anything that works in nature is the alchemical marriage of the masculine and the feminine. Mm-hmm. There is no darkness without light. You don't want it to be just dark or just light. Nature's not that way. You don't want it, if it's overly dry, you want the wet. You want contrasts. And anything that works well is a combination of the masculine and feminine in nature. It's the alchemical marriage of the feminine and the masculine. But if you look at things that don't work in our world today, what we're doing to the planet, it's very much masculine. And I believe that there is not just room for, if we really want things to turn around massively, we need to bring in some feminine leadership, love, compassion, collaboration, nurturing, forgiveness.
Yeah, I think, we've got so much profit, right? And I like to say that America is the land of the corporation and the home of the prophet. It's not really the land of the free and the home of the brave anymore. And I don't think it ever was. I mean, I think it really was all about, let's get a bunch of white guys together and who don't want to pay taxes. I mean, that's the history, right? And it's still the same way. And it's sad, because of just all the problems we have in this country. But when it comes to like looking at what's happening to the world, let's say for a second, let's talk about like the environment. The environment is messed up because of corporate greed, and corporate greed is never going to change. And I mean, it's those, I don't see, unless we had unless we have some sort of a cataclysmic event that, kind of like the Great Depression that really just kills the whole world economy. I mean, COVID has been kind of cataclysmic, but it hasn't stopped the corporate greed at all. It's been worse. It's made medicine worse. It's like it's like going into a prison now to get into the hospital. I mean, and that may be your experience too with your dad being in the hospital.
Thankfully, he was able to get in right away. The system is pretty good here. I do believe that it would take a miracle, but I'm in a place of deeply expecting that something will happen. I was just watching a David Attenborough, I don't know if a documentary.
Yeah.
Forget the title is something like the year the Earth changed or something like that.
And that's on Apple, right?
It could be, yeah.
Yeah.
And in a way, COVID gave nature a break for a year, where animals could speak to their young without trying to go over, the sounds of trawlers and planes, and the things could grow again. And I do believe that, unfortunately, we're probably going to experience more of those things, but I am not looking at a crystal ball. So I'm here.
Yeah. I mean, it would be really nice. I mean, to effect change, we have to start with ourselves, right? If we're going to make a change, we got to start with ourselves. And then to create a movement, we need to get a bunch of people with the same thinking who actually start to make those changes. And then people start to see, and there's a ripple effect. And that's what we need when it comes to kind of embracing the feminine. We need to stop saying that the way that men do things, and especially what you do in your business, you talk about, you don't have to sell like a man. You're a woman. It's okay. You can sell like a woman. And it's almost like women want to wait for permission to be themselves. And that's another societal problem, is that we teach women that they need to have permission.
I'm giving women permission every day. Yeah. Thousands and thousands of women are waiting for someone to give. And I always say, okay, they say, Fabienne, do I have permission to raise my rates? Fabienne, do I have permission to actually do the thing I really want to do instead of blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, okay, so you don't need my permission. The permission train isn't coming. You have to give yourself permission.
Yeah.
But if you want my permission, okay, like, here you go. I'll say this. I believe that the divine feminine is rising. I believe that it has been surging. It's an underground, energetic, spiritual, natural thing. And I think, who knows what it's going to look like. But I believe if you believe in light workers, I'm a light worker. It might be a little too woo-woo for some of the people listening to this, but there are thousands of people who have been born at this time to help with the shift.
Yeah, and that's really interesting you say that, because I've had a shaman on this podcast a couple of times. Her name is Makosi Pitts, and she talks about how she was brought here at this time to help shepherd people into a new consciousness. And you can go back and watch that. I think Through the Looking Glass is one of them. And then there's another one that I can't remember, but they're all on the page. So when it comes to kind of embracing the feminine and also embracing the newness of our difference, like the thing, this, we say unprecedented time, not so unprecedented, happens every 100 years. How do you think that business owners particularly, or people who are just starting out, can pivot and then also future-proof their business?
You can future-proof your business in many different ways. The first is to trust your intuition. We're always making our decisions from our head, but I believe that there's room for intuition. There's room for listening to the signs. Even again, I'm going to go into my woo, but throughout this entire last year and a half, I really looked to the divine for guidance. I asked, please guide my thoughts. Please show me where you can ask your brain, the reticular activating system. I ask the divine this, show me what I need to do next. And then I listen for the guidance. I listen for the intuitive hit. And whenever that instinct comes, I go with it. And when I go with it, it is literally divine guidance. So I think one of the best ways to pivot in any times, uncertain times, is to not be tied to a rule of how it has been. One of the worst things I've heard people say is, not one of the worst things, but it doesn't help when somebody says, but I've always done it this way. Okay. So as Dr. Phil would say, how's that working for you? Right? There's room to be more fluid, and that fluidity is more of a feminine energy. The intuition, when I say feminine, I mean men have this too. We all have feminine and masculine energy, and it's about being willing to use both. So in my business coaching company, I talk about doing the pragmatic and the energetic, being practical and vibrational, just using both. And when you can use both, again, this alchemical marriage of something that's in nature, but also in you, you are more fluid and you can be strategic and intuitive at the same time. This is what I've been teaching people since, March of last year. Is how to use both to pivot your business. And I have to say, even I'm shocked, like so many of our members had their biggest years.
Yeah.
And it's because they pivoted. They went inside. They had to. It was like, okay, it's no longer the same game that we've been playing for 10 to 20 years. It worked.
Yeah, that's I think that one of the ways that we can get stuck is to say it's always been this way. We have to, continue to do it this way. And that's probably insanity, really. I mean, especially if you're getting the same result or not getting the result you want. So
yeah, I went to see the Dalai Lama in India 2 years ago.
Wow.
And
Wait. What was that like?
It's totally surreal.
I can
Totally
imagine.
surreal. We were a group of 40. We were invited to spend a week at his compound. And his right hand, Samdung Rinpoche, took us through the 4 immeasurables over 4 days, and full day. And then on the fifth day, we met the Dalai Lama. And one of the biggest messages I got, the four immeasurables, if I can remember them, forgive me if I miss one, but it's loving kindness, equanimity, joy, and I can look them up.
Is it
I
service?
What's that?
Is it service?
It wasn't, but
no. Okay. I don't know. So,
but one of the things that I learned during that trip, which was completely surreal, when he looked in my eyes, it was a shot of energy. It was really incredible. Like, I'll never forget that moment. Nonetheless, he talked about impermanence.
Mm-hmm.
How the only constant is change, and we suffer when we want things to be the same. And if we can be fluid, if we can roll with the punches, if we can be open, my friend Freddie calls it, well, that was the era of when he moved to Sri Lanka after we had picnics in Paris as families. And I said, Freddie, I'm going to miss you and your daughters. And he goes, well, we're ready for it. We're all moving on to another era. And that was the era of the Fredrickson picnics. But however funny that is, I really understand that now, that if we can just see a series of eras, we had the era of whatever, we had the era of COVID, we had the era before, we're entering into a new one. And if we can do a little less white knuckling, I think we'll be happier. Impermanence.
Yeah,
impermanence.
Well, it's really hard because the brain craves a routine, the brain craves permanence. And that's the dichotomy, right? It's we think that we can control an outcome and make everything the same. And in reality, the best way to find our happiness is to release all of that and let the impermanence come, and just realize that we're 100% ephemeral. When we get that, when we really start to understand that, then it's like, oh, and then you can lean into it, and it makes the decision making easier, I think.
Yeah, I believe that it's about faith.
Yeah.
If you can see, do you know the word pronoia, Michelle?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Pronoia. Yeah, the universe has got your back.
The universe has got your back. The universe is rearranging itself for your best interest, as opposed to paranoia, of course. And if we would just have faith that we will be okay, that everything is always working out for us. If we can look back in our life and say, oh, all those things that happened that felt like a total nightmare, there was something good for us at that time. I'll give you an example. When I was 20, my mother died in a car accident.
Oh, wow.
And of course, horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible. And at that moment, if you had said to me, it would be one of the most pivotal, beneficial things for me, it would sound however that sounds. But that, because of a series of events that happened right before, we were not talking to each other, but I called her because I somehow listened to some divine guidance that I thought there was no God,
Yeah.
We don't have time for me to discuss the whole thing, but that's when I realized that there were so many events that would not have happened without the hand of the divine, that's when I started believing. And I may be a business coach, but I am a spiritual teacher and healer. Mm-hmm. I know this to be true now because I teach this faith thing. Even though I teach you how to make money and lots of it, there's faith involved. And I wouldn't have, there was the hand of the divine in there. And so there's always not just a silver lining on everything that's happened to you in your life. There is a golden lining if you would just see the benefit, if you would just let go of what could have been, what I thought it was supposed to look like, and just let go of the grip and allow yourself to just put your hands on the steering wheel and allow life to take you where it's supposed to take you. The Surrender Experiment by Mickey Singer is one of the best books. I recommend it to thousands and thousands of people.
Yeah. And the Surrender Experiment plus The Untethered Soul, which I had to read 6 times before I got any of it. So, that book, both of those books changed my life. But the book that changed my life the most in this whole journey was Autobiography of a Yogi. And when I read that book, it made the whole Jesus narrative make sense to me. Because here's this guy who's talking about all the things that he was, accessing the divine. He was in alignment with divine. And then, his master appears to him. Have you read this book, Autobiography of a Yogi?
I believe I started it. I wouldn't be surprised if it was right behind me.
So it does get a little weird towards the end, but the audiobook read by Ben Kingsley is really worth it because it's Ben Kingsley speaking. And so it makes it was really, I'd like go running and listen to it. And then I'll still listen to it sometimes, but I actually became a devotee of this guy, Paramahansa Yogananda, because it made everything make sense. It's like, Jesus wasn't the only one. Jesus was just another yogi. And and that's not to be blasphemous for anybody who believes, because I respect your belief. This is just how I've worked it out for me. And when I just look at the miracles and how this guy was like, he was filling stadiums here in America in the 20s. And he taught people a scientific method to God. And it's all in the spine. And it's all about chakras. And it's all about breathing. And I was like, And so when Christ says the kingdom of God is within you, then it all just starts to make sense. You got to meditate or pray or do something to access that divinity that is inside of each one of us. And when you start to understand, say John 1:1, which is the word was with God, and then the word was God, and then and how do you explain that? And what does that mean? And it was basically that there was an entity. The entity wanted to examine itself. And so it broke off, and here we are. And so, I mean, it's gotten really spiritual. And
I have that effect.
Yeah, no, it's so funny because every once in a while we do go down, like I had an Ayurvedic doctor on, and we were talking about food, and we just dove, she's Sikh, and she grew up in America. And so it just to talk about, we just dove right into food is medicine. And oh, by the way, here's a spiritual path. And so I love talking about spiritual stuff. And if, this doesn't resonate for you, you can turn it off. It's fine. I have not offended, but it's just been so interesting for me to be on this spiritual path and start to embrace it. And in embracing it, I've realized that there's so much I have to just shed and let go of and just be. And that's, I think, so important. So,
what I've noticed is that a lot of people, so being a coach for 20 plus years and always working on myself incessantly.
Yeah.
What I've realized is that people who do a lot of personal growth and development work always end up on the spiritual path. It's almost like the shedding that you talk about. When you start shedding the shame that binds you, you start taking things off, and you get less and less in your ego place. You begin to forgive and see each other as being more one. It naturally leads into this spiritual journey. Yeah. I talked about this to people all the time who are in the coaching or personal development world, and there isn't one that isn't spiritual. And they're like, "Oh yeah, I noticed that too. Personal growth, spiritual growth."
Yeah, they're really very, very, very related, and it's been interesting just to observe myself as I get better at all the things I need to get better at, and make the time to continue with that growth. So let's talk for 1 second about how someone can become a money magnet in any economy while working half the time. That sounds like a bold promise.
Yeah. So it's the alchemical marriage of the feminine and the masculine. So I do a money magnet club class.
Yeah.
And what we do is we blend a combination of the feminine, which is about your energy. What is your wealth consciousness? What are your beliefs? How are you being with money? Are you expecting money? Do you feel like you deserve money? Are your thoughts around money good? What is your vibration around money, abundance, self-worth, and all of that? So we work on affirmations. We work on wealth consciousness. We do all that internal work. And then, I also have this masculine side to me. I'm like, let's go, let's hustle, let's do the practical, let's do the pragmatic. We're going to do 3 to 5 actions a day to get the money rolling in. We're going to go on a sprint for 60 days. And so and then it's like motivation, go, go, go. And when you marry the being, the energetic with the practical and pragmatic, you bring them together. There are people who, and I have them set a big, hairy, audacious revenue goal. You can look this up at moneymagnetclub.com.
Yeah.
Just even to see the sales page. When you marry the two and you pick a big, hairy, audacious goal to reach within 90 days, but especially within a 60-day sprint, and you've got a whole community supporting each other. You've got them taking their actions. There's daily accountability. People are making like 60,000, 90,000. This one woman made 106,000 in 60 days.
That's
and some
so
people
great.
are delighted to make 5,000. But yeah, so it's both. If you understand the energy of how the world works, it's not linear. You look at quantum physics, quantum mechanics, you look at law of attraction, whatever you want to, the mental universe, the hermetic laws, all about your beliefs, your vibration and all of that. But then when you follow it up with your hustle and your masculine energy,
I like to say that action, I heard this, I think from James Wedmore first, but action brings clarity. And when I'm stuck in something, you get into this vortex of thought and thinking about change or thinking about doing something. And I find like, well, what is one little thing I can do? What is an action I can take that's going to take me out of this funk? And that will usually do it. So action does help.
Well, one of the things I learned in A Course in Miracles is that...
what? Wait a minute. You mean... This book right here?
Yeah. Is that fear does not happen in the present moment.
That's so true.
So it's either you're focusing on something or you're projecting. But if you're in fear, this is a spiritual teaching or whatever you want to call it, right? But it's a pragmatic, practical way of looking at how do you get out of fear? You get in the present moment, because the present moment is now, and fear does not happen in the present moment. So how can you get more present in this moment?
Yeah.
And yes, it is an urgency. And when you are in fear, one of the best things to do is to take action.
Yeah.
Because it brings you right in the present. And when you're in action, you're not projecting to what could be. You're just in the action. The other thing that I do, and I do this, I did it today. I talked about my dad and being in the hospital, and I was just there and I'm thinking, okay, let's get into the present moment, Fabienne. It's raining outside, but it's beautiful. Everything is good in this moment. Everything is good in this moment, in this moment, in this next moment, in this next moment.
Yeah.
And then the fear just, so I call it pray and move your feet. It's what I was talking about, the energetic and then the pragmatic, pray and move your feet.
That's great. Eckhart Tolle wrote this book called The Power of Now, and it's really great, except for that there's no framework, right? It's really hard to make it make sense. Mm-hmm. But when you stay in the present moment, and I think you've done a really beautiful job of explaining that you can't fail now. Mm. The past can come to the present, and you can worry about the past or think about the future and think that something's going to happen. But right now in this moment, there is no failure. It just is, and that helps us to make time not matter. It helps us to not worry about productivity. It's like, okay, what is important in this moment, and it's so great. So before we end this, I want to hear from you. How to get out of your own way, and what, so you've talked about getting into the present, but you have this thing, what is a powerful mindset shift that can produce immediate results?
You will always attract to what you believe and expect. Okay. So if you want, let's talk about this big, hairy, audacious revenue goal, right?
Okay.
If you want to attract, let's pick a round number, $10,000 in the next week, if you believe and expect it to be true on a subconscious level, I'm not talking about what people say, but if you deeply believe it, where there's no resistance, you're going to take the actions. Why? because your daily actions come from your subconscious mind. Your subconscious deals with 95% of your 95% of your results come from your subconscious programming, usually before the age of 7. Willpower is the 5%. So most of us try to change our situation by willing ourselves to make that $10,000, right? And if we would just go and check in and just say, what are my beliefs about that? What do I expect to be true? If you can change that, and there are many modalities and things you can do, repetition is one of them, then the actions will naturally come. So there's so many people efforting, but if you can just go, and it's not just do I believe and expect, but do I deserve? Will I allow in? Am I good enough to? And this is why in our business coaching programs, we have a mindset first methodology, because I can tell you how to get to $1 million in 3 to 5 years. This is what I teach in the Leveraged Business book.
Right. Oh yeah. And we got to talk about that book.
We can.
Yeah. But
the Leveraged Business, how you can go from overwhelmed at 6 figures to 7 figures with your life back.
I have it too. It's a great book.
There you go.
Let's put it there, everyone. So you can get the book. We'll hook it up in the show notes.
Yeah, thank you. There are bonuses.
Bonuses are fire, everyone. It's really, really great. She's got a whole course in there. Just when you buy the book and tell them you bought it, and they'll give you a nice mini course there.
You go to theleveragedbusinessbook.com to get all the bonuses.
Yeah.
But one of the things we do is we lead with mindset first methodology. Everything in this book is all the mindset gunk that you have around a team, around systems, around how you use your time and not set boundaries, and how you can make. So the whole point to this is that you must start with the mindset, your beliefs, your rules, your self-image, your expectations, your self-worth. Did I say self-worth? Did I mention self-worth?
Self-worth. I mean, what you feel about yourself is so often what kind of results you're going to get in life and in business. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how you do it.
That
is how you do it.
You don't get your mindset, you get your habits. How can you change your habits? The habits are coming from, I mean, it's all together. It's all one thing.
All together.
So was there anything else you were hoping to share with the audience today?
I'm just hoping there was some value, maybe a little rabbit hole that they can go into, maybe an aha moment. I did not have an agenda. I am here to serve.
No, you know what? I never have an agenda either. I always love to just have a conversation and see where the conversation goes. You have another book, and I see it behind you. You want to show that book? It's called Embrace Your Magnificence.
Yeah, right here.
This was the first published book you had.
First book, Embrace Your Magnificence. Get out of your own way and live a richer, fuller, more abundant life. This is a whole course in self-worth, self-esteem. Yeah. It is raw.
That's a great book.
You will really get to know me, because I put all my warts and shortcomings in here. But this is about getting out of your own way.
Yeah. So we'll hook that up in the show notes as well.
Thank you.
And where can people find you?
2 ways. If you have a business, you can go to boldheart.com and just following me on social media. I am Fabienne Fred on Instagram, and I'm Fabienne on Facebook.
That's great. One thing I wanted to ask you just before we go is that if somebody's just starting out, is the Bold Heart Business Program a fit for them, or do you recommend something else?
What we like to, for the Bold Heart Business Program, there are 2 tracks. There's growth that'll get you to 10K a month. We prefer that people already be making 20K, 25K a year before you go with that. You need to have some clarity about your business. You need to know who your target audience is, even though there's room for improvement. But if people go in and they have zero clarity, 0 clients, they've never made any money at it, it's not the right place to start. You got to have a little bit of knowledge before you can get some traction in there.
I think there's a lot of free stuff online that can help you determine who your target market is and how to write an email. And
you can just go to YouTube and search Fabienne Fredrickson, and you have like 21 years worth of free content.
That's great. That's great. Well, Fabienne, thanks so much for being a part of the menopause movement today. It's been really just so It's just been a pleasure to have you on.
I really enjoyed reconnecting with you, and I hope this was useful.
Oh, this is great. I hope to have you back.
Yeah, I would love that.
Did you know that menopause is not a medical condition? Most doctors don't know this either. I like to say that menopause is the privilege of a long life. And to really take hold of our lives in menopause, we have to unlearn what society and the medical establishment has told us about menopause. This is why I've created this brand new course called Understanding Your Hormones and Managing Your Menopause. I want to show you how you can get on top of your menopause right now so that you can start to see it as the best time of your life. Now, this course is valued at $500 and is in the beta testing phase. And we're currently accepting applications for women to test it out for us at no charge in exchange for feedback and testimonials. But the best part is, because you're a podcast listener, you can bypass the application process and go straight to the front of the line. To register right now, simply visit menopausemovement.com/hormones, and we can get started together right now. Remember, you can get started right now at no charge to you in exchange for feedback and testimonials when you go to menopausemovement.com/hormones. And I'll see you inside the course. Thanks so much for being a part of the Menopause Movement.